The world is full of scary stories and urban myths. But how can you tell if any of this is true? I suggest that you yourself draw a conclusion that this is fiction and that it is true. I've selected 10 of the most creepy ones. Slenderman. According to legend, a slender man is a tall, thin man dressed in a black suit with a white shirt and black tie. His arms and legs are long and thin, and his face is devoid of features. Its arms can stretch, and tentacles grow from its back. When a slender person appears, the victim loses memory, experiences insomnia, paranoia, a coughing fit, and blood flows from the nose. If a Slenderman was spotted in the area, then the children would soon be missing. He lures them into the woods, drives them mad, and takes them with him. The children who were carried away by the Slender Man were never seen again. In 1983, 14 children disappeared in Sterling City in the United States. Their disappearance was associated with the Slender Man. Later in the library of the city found a picture of an unknown photographer, which was made on this day, and it was allegedly attended by a monster. In 2014, 2 teenagers tried to kill their girlfriend because they were ordered by Slenderman. Both girls were sent to a psychiatric hospital. One for 25 years, the other for 40. The Black Dog of Meriden. The Black Dog of Meriden from the state of Connecticut is a small ghost dog that leaves no tracks and makes no sounds. According to legend, if you see a black dog 3 times, you will die. It appears noiselessly, does not leave any traces, even in the snow, and then just as suddenly disappears. In the early 1900s, a geologist, Pynchon, explored the mountain of Meriden under the name of West Peak. One day he saw a black dog among the trees. As Pynchon turned to go home, the dog disappeared into the trees. The second time the scientist saw the black dog a few years later in the same place. One of his friends, with whom he went up the mountain that day, said that he had already seen the dog twice. They wandered until they finally reached the top. But the enemy was waiting for them. The black dog stood in front. Pynchon had only turned away for a moment when he heard a terrible scream. His friend fell and hit the rocks. In Meriden, the locals told Pynchon about the legend of the black dog, but he did not believe it. A few years later, the geologist decided to visit the same mountain. He left his apartment at dawn and never returned. His dead body was later found at the bottom of a ravine. Pasadera. In Brazil, there is a legend about a terrible woman named Pasadera. It comes to men who are afraid, or to those who have had a good meal and are lying on their backs in this position. The victim of Pasadera is almost impossible to escape. Pasadera is a bony and thin creature, with short lower limbs and long dirty hair, a hooked nose, reddish eyes, thin lips, and sharp teeth with a greenish tinge. Her long fingers have wide yellow nails. But even more frightening is the laughter and sneering giggles of the monster. If one hears a distinctive laugh in the night hours, so soon it come to Pasadera. It is the eerie laughter that precedes her appearance. The monster torments his victim until she's suffocated from fright, but still Picadero can leave the person, get filled with fear. The Phantom of the Park Benito Juarez in Mexico. There is a Benito Juarez Park in the small Mexican town of Harold El Progreso. This is one of the attractions of the city, but the park was laid out on the site of an old cemetery, so it spread notoriety. The city authorities improved the square as much as possible. They installed benches and paved paths so that people could enjoy the beauty of nature. However, according to local residents, the authorities woke up the local spirits and a curse was placed on the place. Every night in the park, someone destroyed the benches and disappeared. Then the authorities hired security guards to patrol the area at night. And then one evening the guard went on duty. Everything was quiet at first. The riots began when the park was covered with thick fog. The guard heard a woman scream and went to check what happened. When he reached the spot, an elderly woman dressed in a white dress was standing in front of him. The caretaker followed her, and she began to smash and throw benches. When the guard approached her, he saw that the woman had no legs, she was floating in the air. Suddenly the old woman pounced on him and began to beat him furiously. The guard managed to escape, and the next morning he told about what he saw. Soon after this incident, he fell ill with a mysterious illness and died. The city authorities forbade telling about this story in the media, but the rumor still spread around the city. No one else wanted to be on duty at night. The locals called the ghost the Phantom of the Park. The Girl from the Closet. One day, a 57-year-old Japanese man noticed that someone was changing things in his house, food was disappearing from the refrigerator, and at night he was woken up by strange sounds. The man decided that he was going mad because he lived all alone. The windows and doors of his house were always closed. One day he decided to act and installed hidden cameras in all the rooms. The next day, he watched the footage. In the footage, an unknown woman crawled out of the Japanese's kitchen cabinet. The man assumed that she was a robber. But the police said that no one broke the locks. After a thorough search, the woman was found in a small locker. As it turned out, she lived in the house of a Japanese for a year. The Goat Man from Maryland. Many people in the United States associate Prince George's County in the state of Maryland with a bloodthirsty monster named the Goat Man. According to legend, the monster used to be an ordinary goat breeder. Once his wife became seriously ill, and he had to work tirelessly to help his beloved. But the cruel teenagers decided to play a joke on the poor guy and poisoned all his goats. The family was left without a single source of income, and the woman died. Grief turned the farmer into a terrible monster. He ran into the forest and began to kill everyone who met him on the way. According to another version, the Goat Man is a scientific experiment of the mad scientist Dr. Fletcher. Local residents believe that the Agricultural Research Center of the district conducted prohibited experiments on animals. Once, a scientist experimentally created a half-human, half-goat. The researchers decided to keep it alive for study. But the creature grew up and turned into a cruel monster. He killed several scientists and escaped from the center. Whether this is true or a myth, but in the 50s of the 20th century, strange events took place in the district. In 1958, residents found a German Shepherd dead. The dog was torn to pieces, but its meat was not eaten. In the spring of 1961, 2 students were found dead in Bowie, northeastern Maryland. The girl and the boy went to the forest at night. In the morning, a local hunter found a car with broken windows and many deep scratches on the body. The bodies of the teenagers, disfigured beyond recognition, were found in the backseat. The perpetrator was never found. In 2011, the American horror film Deadly Detour was released, inspired by the Maryland monster. Banshee. According to Irish folklore, a banshee is a spirit from the other world. She appears as an ugly woman to the relatives and friends of the one who is about to die. It is believed that if the banshee did not cry loudly enough before his death, then in the next world, her screams will be several times worse. Banshees look like scary women screamers, old women with loose gray hair, a terrible wrinkled face and skeletal thinness. The legend of an American girl who took revenge on her lover. In the United States, there is a terrible legend about a girl who took revenge on her lover for unrequited love. In the small town of Stall, Texas, there was once a small church surrounded by graves. Next to the church was a cellar, which was very difficult to find because it was overgrown with grass. The daughter of a priest fell madly in love with a neighbor's boy, but he broke her heart by choosing another girl. They got married, and his chosen one got pregnant. Soon after the birth of the child, the priest's daughter visited the couple. They welcomed her warmly, but the girl herself looked at their child with hatred. The priest's daughter suddenly attacked her parents and cut their throats, then she dragged their bodies to the hill where the church stood. She left the dead in the cellar and put the living child between them. The priest's daughter closed the cellar door and died soon after. The bodies in the cellar could not be found for 3 weeks. Many believe that the voice of a crying child can still be heard at night near the church. The House of the Dead in Mexico. In the Mexican city of Monterrey, there is a famous legend about an abandoned building called the Corpse House. The strange structure was built in the 1970s, but no one has ever lived in the building. From the street, the house looks like a structure made of concrete pipes. According to legend, the house was built by a rich couple who had a sick, paralyzed daughter. Father wanted to build a special house that would be suitable for people with disabilities. Ramps that led from one floor to another were included in the design of the house. The family started construction. One day the girl wanted to look at the house. She began to ride on ramps. Her parents were distracted for just a moment when suddenly her wheelchair flew down the ramp. The girl could not stop. As a result, she flew out of the window and crashed to her death. Years later, the unfinished building was put up for sale. But no one wanted to buy it for a long time. Once there were clients. They came to see the building with their young son. While the couple were examining the situation, the boy went upstairs, and a few minutes later they heard him scream. On the top floor, he was fighting with a little girl. The unknown woman grabbed their son and threw him out the window. The boy died, and the girl could not be found. After this story, the authorities fenced off the territory. Mary Shaw. In 1941, in one of the theaters of the American city of Ravens Fair, a certain Mary Shaw performed with her doll Billy. Once one of the audience, a small boy, called a woman a liar. He saw that the woman's lips were moving when he was talking to Billy. A few weeks later, the unfortunate critic disappeared. Residents of the city and the boy's parents blamed the ventriloquist for his disappearance. Mary Shaw was soon found dead. According to local legend, the Ashen family, the boy's family, committed lynching on a woman. They broke into the dressing room, made Shaw scream, and then ripped out her tongue. Before her death, the woman wanted all her dolls to be buried with her. There were 101 of them. After the ventriloquist's funeral, the Ravens Fair massacre began. And the victims of crimes were those people who raised their hand on the show. Their tongues were torn out, just like Mary's. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos of mysterious stories and photos. Check out this playlist and I'll see you in the next video.